Okay, so I am a glutton for punishment, I guess. I'm starting this project. Going to reface the bathroom vanity. Would like to do it in the kitchen, so I'm going to start in the bathroom to see if I like the way it turns out. The house really isn't that old. These are probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, maybe a little older, but we've never been really fond of our cabinets. They're just very, very basic, kind of cheap looking, if you will. Not much detail. The countertops are okay. The laminate we're okay with. It's nothing great, but it's got a wood edge, just an oak edge. I'm not big on the angles, just the chamfered look on the edge. So we're going to try and soften that up. I'm not a professional at this by any means. I've consulted with my brother-in-law, who is a professional in the woodworking area, and I've looked at some things online. So anyway, it's going to be a little bit of trial and error. The other thing that I want to do is I want to raise the height of it, maybe a couple of inches or so. So we'll see how it goes. So one of the first things that I need to do, I think anyway, is I don't want to remove the backsplash. That'd just be a real pain, more work than what I want to get into. So I want to actually want to cut a line about 2 inches across here, so that I can pull the work surface or the countertop out, and then be able to raise it up and slide the work surface or slide the countertop right back in to have it at the right height once I bring up the rest of the cabinet. So that's what I'm going to try and do. I've got my rotozip and I got a tile cutting bit, so I'm going to rig up some way to keep it in a straight line and run it across the whole way. I also need to remove the sink, and so I'm going to do that here in just a minute, and get that out of the way so I can cut that tile. That'll be my first project. I just located my first, well, not really a problem, but unexpected situation. These water lines here, if you notice how tight they are, if I'm going to raise up the sink height a couple of inches, I'm going to have longer water lines, which is really not that big of a deal, but I'm trying to get this done as inexpensively as possible, and hopefully I don't run into more of that kind of stuff as we go. I'm having to use my utility knife and carefully go around the edges. Haven't been able to get it to budge yet, but it's harder than I expected to get up, but it'll come. Okay, I cut the sink out. It actually wasn't as hard as I thought that it might be. The caulking, just being old, it's real stiff, and I just had to get a knife in there to separate it, and then I pried it up. No problems, no damage or anything like that. The other thing I did is down underneath, I stuffed some, I just used toilet paper and stuffed it up in the pipe, the drain pipe. Once you take the P-trap off, if you don't put a rag or something like that in there, then the septic gases will start seeping out of there, and it smells real yummy. So if you try anything like this, make sure you plug that up to keep those gases from coming into your room and making it unpleasant. Okay, so I have to remove all the caulking around here to get that out of the way, so that whatever I use, when I rig up my rotozip to cut that line across there, I'm going to have to be able to slide it across here. So I need to get that off, and it needs to come off anyways, so we can redo it when we reset the sink. I can't find my scraping tool, so I found this just a flat piece of steel. It's actually for I think it's for waxing skis or something like that, but it's a real stiff metal that I can carefully scrape that. I want to be careful not to scratch the laminate, so you want to be careful that you're using something that doesn't have real sharp edges that could gouge the laminate if you're going to reuse it. So I'm just going to work around that and clean that up and get that ridge of caulking out of the way. Okay, so I got my trusty roto zip out. This is one of the older models, but it's done a good job for me as I've needed it. I originally thought I'd be using this zip mate attachment. I know that they have blades. For the zip mate, but my local hardware store that I went to did not have them. They had some for the newer models, which are larger in diameter, and so this is not going to work. But what they did have is the tile cutting bit that looks like this. If I can get it in front of the camera, it says that it is tile cut zip bits. So theoretically it should work. I found a scrap from one of our old school projects, just a little piece of plywood, and the height of it actually turns out just perfect. It'll be about 2 inches right to the top of the bit. Now I understand that the shape of the roto zip it's not flat. It's tapered a little bit. So if I have it sitting flat on here, it's gonna cut it a little bit at an angle. I'm not too worried about that because I'll end up caulking it anyways. So theoretically, I don't have it strapped down, but I should be able to just hold it down and slide it right on across and cut a nice straight line. So we will see if it works the way that I hope it will. Well, that's not going as well as I'd hoped. You can see the bit is nice and black and charred. These must be flooring tiles or something, because the bit does say not for flooring tiles, but it's much more dense. It's apparently not ceramic tile. It goes right through the grout, no problem, and it just I barely have a score mark on there, and so I'm gonna have to find a better way. So we'll have to see. Stay tuned. Okay, so it's change of plan time. I have changed my mind on how I'm gonna do this because I don't have a tool that will cut through this backsplash. So what I'm going to do is cut the caulking, remove the countertop, and I'm actually, when I reinstall it, I'm just going to notch around the tile so that I can raise it up, fit it in there, and then I'll caulk it in to fit it. That's what caulking's for, right? Again, I'm trying to do this as inexpensively and efficiently as possible with what I have. So I'm not going to go out and buy a bunch of new tools. I did buy that new RotoZip bit. Didn't work. You know, that's $6 or $8 or something like that. But I don't have a tool that will cut through that. And so I'm going to adjust my way of thinking on how to do it. And underneath the counter, I've removed the drawers. And basically there's a screw back in the corner there, and one in the corner there. That's all it's holding on the countertop, along with the caulking that's by the backsplash. So I've already removed to the right side, so I got to take these left side ones out, and I've already cut the caulking. So once I have those screws out, it should pop right out. We'll see. So the countertop pretty much came right out, no problems. You know, when I pull that off and you can see what's down inside here, I am just blown away at how crummy this stuff is built. You know, this is not a El Cheapo house. It's not super high end, but I cannot believe the junk that they would make. And you know, crazy thing is they probably weren't that cheap to buy, but when you look at the construction and the quality, look how thin a material. I mean, there's just nothing there. Very thin material, other than a plain old oak front faceplate. Very very poor quality in my opinion. Okay, so this is the biggest expense of the project. It's a sheet of 3/4 inch red oak. It's actually quarter sawn plywood. Quarter sawn on one side, and this side is actually rift cut, which it is the side that I'm going to have showing because it's just got such a nice tight grain to it. The one thing about oak that I really have gotten tired of is the big thick heavy grains and all the cathedraling and stuff. So I like a little more of a refined look with the tighter grain, but I still like the color of oak. And so this sheet of plywood was, I think it was $83. So it's the largest expense of the project. And I've already ripped a few boards on it for some of the rails, and I'll go in and show you that. I changed my mind on how I was going to raise it up higher. I was going to actually lift the whole cabinet up, but I decided not to with having to move the holes for the plumbing and stuff like that. It wouldn't have been too big of a deal, but it was secured down pretty well and wedged in to the baseboards and stuff like that. So I decided to leave the cabinet where it's at, and I cut some 2-inch riser blocks for the countertop to sit on. And then I'm going to just adjust the heights of the drawer so that the geometry, hopefully it looks okay when I'm done. I've also decided I want to use a kind of a flush mount drawer, so the drawer sits inside the frame instead of over top of the frame. And so that's the style that I'm going for. So I've got some of the pieces cut and just kind of setting in place. You can see gaps and stuff here, but that'll all tighten up when I get everything. I think that bottom piece is bowed a little bit, so that'll all tighten up when I get to the point where I'm actually fastening it in. Right now it's just kind of sitting there. Okay, so it's actually the next morning. I went to bed. I got most of my face frame pieces cut up last night. I even edge banded them. I will show you how to do that when I do the drawer fronts. I've decided, I think I'm going to pre-stain those face frame pieces out in the garage, and then I'll finish them once they're up. It's like 10 degrees outside, so I am warming up the garage. I got my heater on out there, so while I'm doing that, I can't have my heater on while I'm staining, because my heater's a propane heater, and I do not want a fire. So while it's doing that, I'm going to work on the countertop. I'm going to go ahead and notch this out. So I set it up here and went ahead and measured the width. Now the depth from the wall to the front of the tile, it's about 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to give that even just a little bit extra. So my measurement on this back side is 60 1/4 inches. The right side, or the left side, is 21 1/4. Doesn't matter really if I'm not really tied up against the tile, because that wood trim will go back on there and cover up any gap that's on there. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out into the garage. I have to clean up this grout line so that my saw will run smoothly over that. And I found my scraper, so I'll get that scraped up, and we'll move out there and start working on this guy.